Speaking of being escorted out, I didn't even really plan to discuss this topic on air, but it got so much negative attention, and I could not understand why. I need to shed some light on something, on the whole complicated and very emotional nature of joint placement, joint custody, child support, claiming children on your taxes for the purposes of those benefits, even the earned income tax credit, because there seems to be either a misguided notion or a very unusual kind of territory over who gets to claim children on their taxes. I have long suspected that there are some people, not just women, but men as well, that use children for their financial benefit that they can provide, even though it's not a lot of financial benefit. Unless there's a pandemic, and I guess you maybe get a larger stimmy or additional stimmy if you're head of household or if you have dependents or something like that. But typically, there are no federal or state tax incentives that exceed the expense of the daily cost of taking care of a child, right? I am someone who had joint custody of my child, but my daughter's mother had placement. There are fundamental differences between the two. Just because and we made this decision because I don't want my daughter going to MPS. I didn't think I wanted my child going to school with some of your kids and your grandkids. You're nuts. Don't be offended by that. I'm just being honest. And some of y'all feel the same way. We shared custody, meaning no decision that could impact my child's life could be made without my consent. And sometimes that consent had to go through the court when it comes to stuff like school, religion. Was my daughter's mother going to move to another city, another county, another state, getting my daughter a passport? I had to sign off on documents to allow my daughter's mother to take my child out of the country. And quite honestly, I paused for a moment because I was like, why are you trying to leave the country? Now, eventually, I gave in. But when I posted information to the men, because men get screwed over, and I think that when we find out a woman is pregnant, now I got to be real clear about this. Unmarried people. Married couples is different. Fellas, prepare to get screwed. When it comes to child custody, placement, alimony, and child support, if you are married, the odds are not in your favor. But there's a fundamental difference, though, between situations where there's a marriage that dissolves and there are children involved, and then the other situation is there was no marriage and the relationship dissolves and there are children. If you are married and getting divorced, fellas, more often than not, you're going to get an attorney, especially if there are assets involved. There's houses, there's cars, there's investment accounts, savings accounts where you have combined your assets, and that can get very messy. And the children are another variable on top of that, because now you got to figure out, well, who gets the house, who gets the other assets, who's going to have placement of the children, who are the children going to live with. It's a whole thing. So the difference is when men are unmarried and you have a child out of wedlock with a woman, and if she files to receive child support, most men don't get a lawyer. Fellas, do not ever, I don't care what it is, ever go into a situation where you have to be in court without a lawyer. Don't ever do that. Here's the other thing, gentlemen, and this is why so many women got upset, because they found out I claimed my daughter for, all things considered, 19 years on my taxes. My daughter's mother, and I paid her child support. But I got to claim her. I got all the tax credits. I got all the extra stimmies. I got all of them. And when I conveyed via my Facebook group, I said, gentlemen, you can claim your child as a dependent on your taxes. And I left it at that. The number of women that had a fit. How dare you? No, they can't. Because there seems to be, and I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush here, this victim mentality that when women are raising children, now I'm not arguing that it's a tough job. I know that it is. We all know that it is. In fact, it's an impossible job. It's an impossible job with two parents, let alone with one. But there seems to be this victim mentality. Oh, I'm over here raising the kids and I'm a single mother. And immediately all of us, by default, as a matter of American culture, we bow down and give all of the sympathy to the single mother because we all respect how hard it is to raise kids with two parents, let alone with one parent. But then when I think about it practically or logically, if it's that much of a heavy burden and if it creates a victim mentality, if you're raising the kids on your own, then give the kids to the father. Oh, no. They'll never do that. But if it's too much and I'm a single mother and it's so hard and I just can't, and then the kids were up all night and it's just so hard by myself, then let the daddy have the kids. And then you get a whole nother conversation about how horrible he is. And a lot of times he's horrible because he's remarried. A lot of times he's horrible because he has another girlfriend. A lot of times he's horrible is because he is moving on with his life and not keeping the woman that he had the children with out of wedlock front and center in his life. And again, this is not all cases, but you guys know enough cases. And I might be speaking to some of you directly. If some of you feel targeted or triggered, I certainly apologize for that. But if it's so hard, if it's so impossible, then let the child stay with the father. Give that father joint placement. And a lot of reasons why women will never do that. I know two women that pay child support, and they complain more than any man. Women that pay child support hate the system more than Donald Trump hates the January 6th committee and the FBI. It is unfair. It's disrespectful. I paid child support for technically 19 years. I paid $160,000, and that's just raw child support. That's not other money. That's not other financial support. Had to help my daughter buy a car. It doesn't even. That is more money than I paid for my house. Damn. So, and I got off, I think, relatively easy with that dollar amount. Could have been more, and also could have been less as well. I thought it was fair. I paid more money in child support than any man I knew at the time. But I also got to claim my daughter on my taxes every single year. And when I made men aware of that fact, women had an absolute fit. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about how, fellas, if you're going to court for child support, because you get a packet. It's